Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to another Gundam review, and today I'm taking a look at the high-grade Infinte Justice Gundam Type 2, once again from that movie, Mobile Suit Gundam Seed Freedom. Now, so far this line has absolutely been incredible, almost with platinum tier scores across the board, and now today we're going to be looking at this. And I have a little bit of a shock, or I've been a little bit shocked by one particular aspect about this kit, but I'm not going to mention that right away. What I'm going to mention right away is if you want one of your own, I got mine through Hobby Link Japan, you can too, and link will be down there in the description. Now let's wind on back a little bit to the build. So on getting the high-grade Infinte Justice Gundam Type 2 out of the box, the first thing I wanted to know about this, and I'm sure you want to know the exact same thing, and this is what surprised me. I was wondering just how much of this kit right here is based off of the high-grade Infinte Justice, a kit that just came out about 4 years ago, which was an incredibly awesome kit. I thought this looked very similar and would just share a lot of the aspects, but that is not the case. As far as I can see, every single runner in this was molded and designed in 2023, so nothing is anything that we've seen before. Definitely impressive, and I'm curious as to how this is going to turn out. So when it comes to actually putting together this version of the Infinte Justice, I'll have to admit I am very shocked. This is a lot different than I expected, and it's a little bit more difficult than your typical high-grade build. First off, when it comes to the legs, there's a lot going on in here. There is some nice, I'm not sure if it's a shiny coating or if it's the type of injection. I think it's a shiny coating on some of the outer joint sections, which gives it the silver sheen that the answer to the mighty Strike Freedom should have. That has gold, this is silver, and it looks incredible. But the way it builds up is ridiculously unique. It's not really like anything I've seen before. This line is very experimental and cool. First off, the knees attach almost in a kind of perpendicular kind of way inside of the knee, so you have a little bit of a side-to-side wiggle when they're attached. I've never seen anything like this before. A lot of the joints are very complex compared to your standard high-grade kit, and it all builds up in a unique sort of way. And speaking of that difficulty, there's some very tiny little thruster sections in the feet as well as the knees. Now these have a tiny little bit of a joint in them so you can angle them. It's very, very tiny, but getting these into where they have to rest while attaching the knees on or the tops of the feet on is a little bit of a balancing act because nothing is holding them in position and they are tiny. Once you actually get used to it, it's not so bad, but a little bit more difficult than average. What's going on inside of the waist unit once again is incredible and like nothing I've seen before. A lot of it builds up in a, well, again, super atypical kind of way. We've got some hips that flare out so the legs move upwards, so you'll get some crazy splits out of it. These all layer onto the waist unit in a way I've never really seen before, that you've all these parts layered on top of each other and then they're held in place by the butt flap. Now I think the old Infinte Justice might have had something similar to this, but not as detailed as far as I recall. Even jumping up to the front, the front skirtings do not attach via the usual ball joint sort of thing. They attach onto ball joints on the waist unit. So the ball joints are on the crotch, not on the flaps. The complete opposite, and this feels kinda cool. It's very unique. It's different. Jumping on up to the torso, and again, this is a difficult build. It's very unique. A lot of parts attached together in a bit, like I said, of a balancing act. You need to stick the neck up into the torso. That's just kind of holding on in there, can't fall out. You've got some shoulder joints to make, which are nicely angled. Actually, some of the joints in this have an angle to them, which I've never seen before. They're not just straight joints. Inside the torso, we've got a multi-jointed little system just made out of 3 parts that attaches into the waist, again, in an unusual way. The usual armor you see around the waist of a Gundam, the actual waist, not the waist unit, clips on from the front via a little C-clip, not onto the sides like we normally see. This all sandwiches together then in a kind of unique way that makes the back a little bit hard to put on when you're putting on the panel because there's a peg deep inside of the actual apparatus you just put together. And then you layer on the various torso parts in a way I've never seen before. All the colors are coming from inside, they're not layering on from the outside, including the white around the cockpit as well. And it all becomes a little bit tough to push together. I feel like I'm squeezing a lot of this kit more than I'd be squeezing other high grades out there. But what you get in the end is totally worth it from it. It's a rock solid feeling kit with some unique movement to it, and I'm not even halfway through it yet. So next up, moving on to the arms, and these are more your standard kind of model kit kind of arms. When it comes to the shoulders, there's a few parts. They just pop together sandwich style. It all works out really well, except we do have 2 pretty nasty knobs on the very top of the shoulders when you're done, so be very very careful with this part. Overall, the rest of the arm builds up in the usual kind of way with that 2-point bend at the elbow. The armor then sandwiches on. We've got lots of nice elements to it, but overall quite simple and pretty much par for the course for a high grade. Now the Justice Type 2 gets back to being weird when it does come to the head. Overall, it builds up very uniquely. We do have some stickers for using with the head, cameras, and we have extras, funny enough. There's 4 choices to actually use for the front head camera. 2 of each are the same, so it's 2 pairs of stickers, so they assume you're going to screw up somewhere here because they are tiny. On top of that, the actual face plate runs right up through the top of the head. The eyes on this are not color separated, sadly. They are a clear green piece on the inside and a sticker for on the outside. The neck joint attaches in from the back in a funny way, which kind of gets a little bit in the way later on. And speaking of funny, that unicorn-esque horn, and I mean a unicorn horse thing, not unicorn, the Gundam, slides in from the back once again, just like we would have seen with some of the thrusters earlier on, in a funny way that gives it a little bit of a hinge. This locks in from the top then, and then the front of the face slides on with the V-fin attached. And once again, this is another one of those seams that doesn't seem to be fully closing up for me. You have to put some crazy pressure on this kit when squeezing parts together, and that's everywhere. However, with the robot actually done, it does look gorgeous, but there is some funny aspects to the build that makes it a little bit more difficult than your standard high grade. Jumping around to the backpack. Now, I didn't pay too much attention to this design before it actually came out, and it's funny enough, its backpack is legit just an X-Wing from Star Wars. Straight up, a folded up X-Wing. In order to build the X-Wings, these have a bunch of parts on them, then they attach together just for one side like so. So they do close together just like an X-Wing, and they open up just like an X-Wing too. Again, we've got some more funny joints in here. So when you actually build up the next part of this, you actually attach these pair of wings that are attached together up inside of this little drum section. Nothing is actually holding this in place. It's a bit of a balancing act at first. Then you attach a piece onto the front like a ring, as well as onto the back, and this secures everything in place. Very, very unique. Then it builds into the actual backpack proper. You attach a bunch of other pieces together, it locks in, and we do have a kind of fighter-shaped backpack that folds up in the center. We've got a couple of simple enough cannons to attach together up top, but besides that, the backpack is easy enough, with once again a kind of tough central aspect to squeeze together. It takes a lot of actual squeezing pressure on so many parts of this kit to put together, which is something I have never encountered before. But in the end, we do get an absolutely awesome kit, so let's check it out. So jumping on into the aesthetics, and here's the high-grade Infinte Justice Type 2, and you might be thinking, I'm having a bit of deja vu here, I've seen this before. Well, that is because you technically have. Twice in the last couple of years. Well, 4 years to be exact. So this right here, of course, is another take on Athron Zala's Justice Gundam. We had the Justice, Infinte Justice, Immortal Justice, and those last two came out in the last few years, and this one is extremely similar to 2020's Infinte Justice Gundam, so much so that I thought this would be a kit based on that one, and it kind of is, but not really. This entire kit is 100% designed from the ground up for release this year. But yeah, because this kit right here is very similar to two kits that came out in the last few years, I might as well spend the vast majority of the aesthetics talking about how they compare. So when it actually comes to this trio right here, this kit definitely does feel the most modern in a lot of different ways. And when it comes to similarities, it's a lot more similar to the Infinte Justice than this right here, the Rising Freedom Justice. By the way, if you want to see some reviews of all of these, they're on here. This kit is brand new. It's really nice, some great curves. This bit right here is extremely annoying for falling off, but besides that, one solid, awesome kit. Again, the similarities this time around are the most similar to this right here, the 2020 version of the high-grade Infinte Justice. Now, straight away I do feel the new Infinte Justice, although overall somewhat a better kit, is lacking one thing, and that is that absolutely killer shade of purple, and I do feel we are missing out on a lot by losing this little green stripe right here, but that's just my opinion. However, one thing that I really do like is the joints in this are kind of in a silver. It almost reads on camera like the regular grey, so there is a bit of an injection silver. What we've got on this kit is vastly more interesting. It's a lot shinier and does kind of look a little bit more chromed out, matching with the mighty Strike Freedom a lot. Well, in a nicer kind of way. But yeah, jumping into a bit of a comparison, spinning them both around, and the most kind of obvious difference between the two is the backpack. We have the Fatum, or is it the Fatum 2, on the older Infinte Justice on the right. This time around, we've got this brand new backpack that resembles a Star Wars X-Wing. The grey is interesting. It definitely separates the backpack a lot more from the mobile suit itself, and overall, there is a lot of similarities, a lot of different aspects too, but it's still a fun take on the exact same kit. Now this is physical, by the way. They are a completely different build with similarities. So taking a look at a bit of a close-up between this and the other two kits, just so you can kind of see which one you like the most yourself. This kit is a little bit on the plain side once again compared to the older Infinte Justice. A downgrade, hard to say, maybe. That is, of course, coming from a little bit of a kind of physical standpoint, by the way. But again, this sort of thing will definitely come down to your own personal taste, but the similarities are striking, and the only real big difference is we're missing that little green piece. Jumping on into the heads, and once again, it's hard to say. I do like the fact that what we're seeing right now with the Type 2 is between the Immortal Justice and the Infinte Justice. We don't have a sticker on the pointy horn up top, which is always very nice. The face in general does look cool, but I do feel it's lacking a little bit compared to the older Infinte Justice, which had nicely color separated Vulcans in the side of the head. The Vulcan on this is just in pink. That could be line art accurate, by the way. It just doesn't look as fancy when you are taking a look at the kit. But again, this is all down to your own personal opinion. It's there for you to take a look at. You can decide on which one you like the look of the most yourself. But yeah, anyway, once again, this is the Type 2 right here on the left. This is the older Infinte Justice on the right. This is from 2020, and they are strikingly different to the point you would think they are based on each other. Like you take the arm armor here, it's separated in the exact same way as the older high grade here. Even the side skirting armors with these side bits, which I will mention, are nice and tight. On this kit, they were an absolute nightmare. You just breathe on them and they go, wait, did I just mix them up? Trying to make a point now about how these always fall off, but it's not falling off. Anyway, really? There we go. Yeah, it doesn't take much to knock those off at all. This is not the case on the brand new kit. But yeah, it is so interesting how many aspects are, well, very similar but different at the same time. For example, there's the underside of the skirt on the 2024 on the 2020 Infinte Justice. So as you can see, regular ball joint into the crotch right there. The newer kit definitely makes this a lot more impressive. The way it actually has grey on the undersides of these, giving it that more premium kind of look. Also, the ball joint attaches in from this section into the side of this. It's very nice. But then we've got some other little kind of like visual downgrades, I feel. And that is this back here. The standard Infinte Justice had a very nice setup around back when the backpack was removed. This one right here is a little bit on the plain side. I know that's just hidden away most of the time, so it doesn't really matter, but wait a minute. For a sec. Oh yeah, this has that unlocking mechanism, which allows the legs to move. This actually has a free sliding mechanism in there, so it is a little bit better on that regard. It's crazy. So similar. It's like an actual upgrade with a bit of a debatably visual downgrade. So anyway, throwing the Type 2 into a full spin so you can check every aspect of it yourself. Again, very similar to the older Infinte Justice. The build is a lot nicer. It is a lot more modernized and kind of fixed in some regards, but visually it is similar. That's probably the best way to put it. The only real visual upgrade I feel is the nice chromed out segments on the joints, but besides that it is extremely similar with all of those nice aesthetic Infinte Justice things that you love, besides, well, of course, missing that nice green stripe. So when it does come to the stickers that are inside of this, thankfully none of these are really for using on the mobile suit itself, besides the ones that are the eyes and the head cameras. These do exactly what you'd expect them to do. There's the eyes, the head camera is tucked in there, and we do have one around back just inside there. But otherwise, everything else is color accurate as far as I can see. So next up, when it comes to a size comparison, there it is side by side with your average size Gundam being the RX 78-2. So as you can see, the Infinte Justice Gundam Type 2, pretty average too. Once again, beside the Immortal Justice Gundam, Gundam Barbatos, Gundam Exia, and Zeta Gundam. Moving now into the accessories, and here's everything that comes inside the box, and this is quite the loadout. First off, we've got the Volantes backpack, the usual Gundam loadout of sword, board, and beam rifle, and on top of that, we've got a bunch of different effect parts in pink, in blue, as well as a wire, so a lot in here, and always nice to see a spare left hand in a nice widespread pose. So first off in here we've got the Volantes backpack. Now this without a single doubt is definitely what makes this kit very unique compared to the few versions of the Justice we've seen over time. This has a distinct, well it says this in the instructions, a distinctive X-wing shape, or more specifically it says a distinctive X-shaped design. But yeah, this has a nice different color to what you usually see on the back of a Justice, so it gives it a whole different feeling. Now this right here is it, and I am very impressed by this in a lot of ways. The way we saw this build up during the build is really unique. The fact that the wings are held on by this cuff and this cuff right here, and it means this just moves so perfectly. Even though I did have some difficulty squeezing some parts together, it did end up very strong in the end. First off, this does have a kind of flight form where it can kind of fly around on its own. Get this right, the pointy bits go to the front just like so. You can kind of tell from the missile pods on it, and just like you would see in Star Wars with an X-wing, these can separate out and open up just like so. Honestly, I think this is a really cool kind of throwback to a very classic and iconic design, and adapting it into a Gundam is pretty fun. Now this does have a little bit of a 3mm peg in the bottom here. The stand I'm going to be using today, because this kit does not include a stand, is the one I always use, which is Good Smile Company's Simple Stand. Always super recommend these. Cheap and very, very effective for high-grade kits. So you can just pop that in here, and this can be posed just like so, if you want to just show this in flight itself. Very interesting design. So any panel lined some aspects, yeah, the part that you're going to see when it's actually a robot, but overall there is some nice panel lining on this. Good detailing in the thrusters. Actually, the thruster detailing on this kit in general is phenomenal, and the transformation is very simple. The wings just clip together, and they do clip, so they hold together. This just folds down at 2 segments. There is the backpack adapters, and all I can say is for those of you who are familiar with gunpla backpack adapters, this is not the standard adapter at all. This is the Infinte Justice style. So the Infinte Justice Gundam right here, this rocks that, as you can tell by me saying Infinte Justice style. So that is an awesome thing. But the recently released Rising Justice right here, or Immortal Justice, I always forget the names. Immortal Justice has the standard backpack adapter only, so that means this can't use it, but the Infinite definitely can. So out of curiosity, just trying this on the Infinte Justice right here. So I tried this already, so I know it does fit. This just pops into these 2 slots just like that there, and that is what this backpack looks like on the Infinte Justice. So you can just pop down these here for those shots, pop out the wings just like that for a little bit of a classic striker pack kind of feel, and then these can pop open, as simple as that, and that to add that little bit of Star Wars flair. So by using the good old reverse logic, then the Fatum right here, or the Fatum 2, I can't remember off the top of my head, that we saw with the Infinte Justice will fit onto this kit. So it has the exact same attachment point. Once again, pops on very nice. And if you want yourself a little bit of a kind of variant, but still classic kind of looking Infinte Justice, there you go. Now there is articulation on this. Will it work? It's kind of clashing a little bit with the V fin right there, but you might have to remove the head or something. Oh, no, moves it around just like that. There we go. So that is that working with the new Infinte Justice Type 2. So that is some nice compatibility between the kits. Now I know I'm super guilty of saying this over and over again, but this might just be my favorite pack on all of these high-grade Justice kits so far. It's just so nice. The grey really kind of pops against the actual Gundam itself, so it looks like a supplementary unit as opposed to part of the actual Gundam, and it's just so easy to move around, and it's so well designed. It's pretty damn cool, and the fact it can be a flight unit or support unit all on its own is pretty damn awesome. Next up, when it comes to the beam sabers, these attach into the hands in the usual kind of way, slide in super easy. Now, we'll mention there's just something so magical about the Infinte Justices. I'm not sure if it's just both versions of the Infinte Justice, this one here being the Type 2 and the standard one, but they've got extra long shafts to the sabers, which just looks really cool. It adds to the cool factor, definitely. Now, we'll mention the beams were bent inside the box. This is kind of odd. It might have something to do with the fact that these come on the runner with all the rest of the effect parts, so they're not your standard beams. If you have this issue, just put them into some very warm water, hot even, leave them there for a little while, take them out, then straighten them and allow them to cool while straight, and they'll stay straight for you. Anyway, you can attach this end-to-end Darth Maul style, and that is exactly what it will look like. So, standard-ish beam sabers, nice handles, attach end-to-end. When these are not in use, you just remove them the exact same way you attach them on. Remove the beams from the handles, just like that. And just like we would have seen with the Infinte Justice, we do have these removable panels in the side which just pop off like so. However, these are not loose like said Infinte Justice parts. Now you just attach these beam sabers onto a tab on the sides of these. I just realized right here that there is meant to be a little bit of pink on one of the circular sections there. You can paint that in yourself or leave them blank, and then they just pop on like so for storage on the side skirts, and these are good and secure. So when it does come to the hands in here, we've got the hands we've had here the whole time, which, well, they're just the kind of standard Gundam holding hands, but this time they are in that nice, unique color. I've never seen this color in a Gundam kit before. It's not quite chrome. It's not quite plastic injection. It almost feels like it's got a little bit of a kind of paint coating, but at the same time it seems a little bit more robust than your usual style. Never seen anything like it. But yeah, we do have one extra hand in here, so just pop that off. And the alternate one is a nice widespread one, again with that pretty cool coating. I don't know if this really picks up in video or not, but this has a kind of almost like a liquid metal kind of feel about the way it looks. The next weapon we have in here is the beam rifle, and we've seen this multiple times before because this is the Seed Freedom beam rifle. There really isn't a whole lot to say here. This attaches in the usual kind of sandwich style. Once again, absolutely perfectly fitted to the hand. Throw in the back of the hand on just like so, holds on perfect. Usual ball joint attachment, and that right there is what it looks like in the hand. Now, I love these beam rifles. They are such an incredibly nice design. There's a lot of nice color separation, but once again, like we've seen through this whole line so far, these little pink bits right here, these are meant to be on this rifle. Basically, this gray section here along the top, that is meant to be in pink, not in the gray, but still looks great in gray. So getting this into a pose, and it does look absolutely fantastic. Honestly, this, I know I say it all the time, might just be my favorite kit from the line. I'm taking a look over at them now, and this really, I don't know, there's just something about it that is so special. Anyway, when the beam rifle is not in use, you just remove it out of the hand just like so. And just like all these beam rifles we've seen so far, we've got this bit here that sticks into the butt flap just like that, and it holds on pretty damn well. So next up in here is the shield, and this actually does a whole lot. We'll get it attached on first, and then I'll talk about what it does actually. But the looks of things, this is identical, if I'm not mistaken, to the shield. Wait a minute. Hold on, I've got it over here. But yeah, it looks incredibly similar to the one we saw with the Infinte Justice. This part here is color separated. It is not on the Infinte Justice, but besides that, everything, oh, the handle on the back here is a little different too. Did this part come off? It did. The handle is inside of the body. This time around, it's kind of on it. But yeah, very similar, but not exactly the same. When it comes to getting this attached, you have the choice of the side of the arm or the rear of the arm. So getting this shield attached is as simple as slapping it onto the side of the arm just like so, and it does look very nice with some great color separation. Now this can do a whole lot of things. First off, grab this little domey part in the front, pop it off like so, stick it into the beam shield effect we have in here, then slap it back onto the shield for some more protection than we would have had before. This is mildly vigorous and looks pretty good. It catches the light in a very nice sort of way, but as far as I can tell, doesn't have any kind of pearlescent coating. If that wasn't enough, we also have the grapple stinger in here, so just pop that shield off. While the little domey part is removed, you're able to pull out the little grapple stinger like so. This is like a little crab claw, has movable little segments up top like this. You just stick the included wire into the back of this just like so, and then the other end into the yellow section of that little domey bit like this. Once you do have it attached, I have to say this is a little bit on the floppy side. The wire is definitely a bit anemic, and I could have provided something a little bit better. You can get it into some poses, not into anything great, and it does like to kind of rotate in the yellow section a little bit. Could be better, but you can kind of maybe just about pull it off. And speaking of pulling off, pull off all the bits that you just kind of attached on there, get it back to its initial state. In here we do have a beam effect for using with this. Once again, are pretty much identical, if not exactly the same as what we saw with the regular Infinte Justice. Pops into the end of the shield like this, taking the, or should I say adding an offensive edge to this defensive piece of equipment. You can rip off this part then like so. This attaches into the hand just like the beam sabers did. Well, more like the rifle. You have to disassemble the hand to attach it. Bend this just like so. There is a bit of articulation right here, and you've got yourself your beam boomerang. So it just really isn't a Infinte Justice without some beam boomerangs. And no, there's none in the shoulders. So the last few things we've gotten here are all effect parts. These pink ones right here that look like they taste like some kind of strawberry jellies. But anyway, these are pretty much what we see all the time when it comes to the Infinte Justice. Some of them pop onto the wings of the X-Wing round back just like so. So that is 4 of those. We've got those shin kicking effects like we always see with a Justice. They pop in just like so, easy enough as well to get on and absolutely ridiculous. But if you're speaking about absolutely and utterly, atrociously, brilliantly ridiculous, we also get a beam effect that pops onto the top of the head just like so. And to make it even better, then this clear, pink, sparkling, well there's no sparkling, unicorn, it's actually got a bit of articulation too, so it can swing back and forth for, I guess, some kind of head swinging beam death. So finally now onto the articulation, and first off when it comes to the build of this is rock solid, impressively so. We've got the exact same kind of seed, action, whatever they called it throughout the, well, this particular seed series so far, where you've got some very nice joints on it. However, they haven't really been keeping the waist units the same on all of them, which is both interesting and kind of odd. So what we've got going on here is a variation of the older Infinte Justice Gundam. So this just kind of slide up and out just like so, which is a very odd way for a hip to go. This is, I guess, for better splits and kicks. But honestly, I would have preferred a dropping mechanism for overall nicer posing, because this heavily limits how high the leg can go up to the front, which makes it kind of a little bit limp when it comes to some kind of poses, I find. You can never get the knee any higher, and that just doesn't really look that cool. But anyway, getting into the usual pose. So getting this into the usual pose, and I am actually shocked. So much went on during the build of this kit that I expected so much more. This is the worst of the line so far when it comes to posing, especially when it comes to the main Gundams. This is limited. So once again, those hips not the greatest because the legs don't go up too far to the front. Also, we've got no real ankle articulation to the front and the back to allow for, you know, it kind of to get low into the lunge to go with this, and the shoulders are a little bit on the limited side too. I was actually shocked by what these couldn't really pull off. In order to get the shoulders up, you need to move them to the front, which is a kind of a weird combination. Overall, it just didn't perform as well as I would have hoped, or as well as the rest of the line had so far. This definitely experimental on the inside. A lot of new kinds of joints, a lot of new things going on, but the payoff in the end is not quite as good as some of the other Seed Freedom kits we've seen so far. So anyway, that right there is it for the review, and I am torn, absolutely split asunder, trying to decide what tier this should be. It just doesn't feel the same level of quality as the other kits in some regards, and it does in others. The best aspects, I guess, and let's just break it down bit by bit. First off, aesthetically, it is absolutely gorgeous. It's a nice shade of pink, maybe not quite as nice as the Infinte Justice Gundam itself. It's a little bit of an almost a kind of visual downgrade to some degree, but that is completely subjective. The new silvered parts are extremely nice looking. Non-color separated eyes does feel like a bit of a gunpla backstep. We do have grey armored sections underneath the front skirtings. There's a lot of good aspects, but mainly good aspects. So aesthetically, absolutely full marks, I'd say. Next up, when it comes to the accessories in here, you're fully loaded. That backpack is absolutely phenomenal. You can do so much, it looks very nice, but it is limited in what kits can be used with. It's got the Infinte Justice attachment point, so it isn't compatible with every kit out there. Overall, we've got a lot of nice weapons. The beam rifle is the same as we saw before, not fully color accurate, yet absolutely gorgeous, and overall, everything is very, very nice. Lastly, then, when it does come to the articulation, it does leave a lot to be desired. It is very rock solid, it feels very nice, but it's limited in a lot of weird ways. But at the same time, the experimental design to some of the aspects, like the ab crunch, maybe just the ab crunch actually, is quite cool. The hips, I'm not sure why they did what they did. The articulation definitely brings it down in the marks. But yeah, in the end, I am shocked to say, and I don't like to say, but this thing right here is gold tier. Just because of the articulation. If articulation doesn't mean a thing to you whatsoever, then it would be platinum. But because when it comes to the overall totting up of the score, it just doesn't make it to platinum, sadly. But it is still, however, a very fantastic and pretty cool kit, and I still highly recommend it. Anyways, always thank you so much for watching. Make sure to come back for more gunpla reviews, and I will see you next time. I can't end this video right here without the usual thanks, saying thank you so much for watching. This video and this channel would not be possible without each and every single one of you, including those of you who support me over on the channel memberships and on Patreon, including Abraxas, Caleb Engelhart, Go Little Rockstar, Joe, Org59061, Shadow Wolf 179, 10 Soldier YT, and Van Fawn.